So I think generally people pay too much attention to just the S&P 500, even though it's an important index. Of course, it's a big index. It's got huge companies in there. But the fact that the company or the index is market capitalization weighted, basically what it does, it puts way too much weight in just a few companies, and it's something I've talked about here in these videos many times over the past couple of years or even more. And there is actually a solution though that I can give you of a better index that you might be able to look at, and that is the New York Stock Exchange Composite. It has, I think, almost 2,000 stocks in there, and if you compare that to the S&P, which has quote-unquote only 500 stocks, it just makes for a better read. And so that diversification across even international stocks, I think several hundred of the stocks in the New York Stock Exchange Composite are what's called ADRs, American Depository Receipts. So it gives you sort of a broader swath of a sample of stocks. And so I'm going to show you a couple of charts here so you can kind of see for yourself how the New York Stock Exchange Composite gives you a better read on average on the stock market in general. So I would highly encourage anyone to look at that particular index. So let's have a quick look at this, and you'll see this very simply. Just it's not complicated. It just makes a lot of sense once you look at this. So this is the New York Stock Exchange Composite, and you can see it continues to make a series of lower highs so far. So here we had the high in January 2018. Then we had the high here. Let me make this a little bit longer so you can see. Then we had the high, the second lower high took place here in September of last year, so 2018. And now potentially, and we don't know this yet, we need a little bit more confirmation, potentially you made another lower high. So that's one thing worth noting here. Also, by the way, these rising wedges we've been talking about here for the past couple of weeks are working out rather well. Now, if you would have just looked at the S&P though, you would have gotten very excited, as the broader media did over the past few months, that it broke higher, right? And so I drew these question marks in here because I wanted to give people the idea that that's what people were thinking. And so it would have gotten, we did make ultimately a higher high, but that's largely because of a few heavy-weighted stocks in the S&P, like Microsoft and some other stocks. So if you want to get a better idea on the market and trade with less, let's say, more perspective and less guessing and less fear and less randomly clicking around the market, then I would highly encourage you to use the New York Stock Exchange Composite. Again, it is just common sense. Just using an index that has 2,000 stocks in it, even international stocks, it just makes a lot of sense. And it's different industries, different groups. The S&P, again, it's a great index and it's a big index, but it does have that distortion right now, particularly right now, where a few very heavily weighted and thus large companies are taking the lion's share of the index. And so that's also what the whole idea behind our process using the Market Rover is we give you this much better view of the market through ETFs and stocks, and then through that give you much more perspective and ultimately even the individual trade alerts that pop up here on the Market Rover and so on and so forth. And I just thought this might be something to kind of share with you guys today. Just I think a better, or at least an additional index to watch rather than just the S&P. I know a lot of people just glance at the S&P, but a lot of times it doesn't give you that picture that I think is needed. So I hope this is helpful. See you guys soon.